This hearing of the Subcommittee on Global Health, Global Human Rights, and International Organizations will come to order. Today we appeal to President Daniel Ortega. Let imprisoned Catholic Bishop Alvarez go. Release him from prison. Out of an abundance of concern for Bishop Alvarez's welfare and health, let him come to the United States or to the Vatican or somewhere else, or stay right in Nicaragua, where he can again serve the people, preach the good news of the gospel, and care for the weakest and most vulnerable. Bishop Alvarez's life and ministry has been an inspiring example of compassion, kindness, integrity, and selfless service. In his homilies, he speaks of an enduring gratitude and, quote, serenity in our hearts that can only come from God, the peace that surpasses all understanding. He encourages us to be, quote, be convinced that everything is happening for our good because God loves us and because we love him. He preaches love and forgiveness, and that, quote, Christ calls his disciples not to harbor resentment and to always forgive, close quote. He conveys hope, holiness, humility to the people of Nicaragua and to the people of the world. Bishop Alvarez is an innocent man enduring unspeakable suffering. Today we appeal to President Daniel Ortega, release him from prison. Let Bishop Alvarez go. We will hear testimony today from members of the church, and thank you for you being here, Ms. Omer, who will speak, but in case of the members of the church, who have actually experienced the Ortega regime's oppression firsthand. I want to thank the witnesses for being here to share their stories. I thank you for your bravery, your tenacity and faithfulness in the pursuit of peace and reconciliation, and for inspiring us with your indomitable faith in God. It is crucial that the world hears your voices and learns the truth of what is happening in Nicaragua, including the truth about the prison conditions and treatment of Bishop Alvarez. The international community can no longer turn a blind eye to what is happening to the people of Nicaragua, including and especially people of faith. It has been my experience over the last 43 years as a member of Congress that dictatorships often rely on forgetfulness or compassion fatigue, where there's outrage at first, it begins to abate, and then the terrible misdeeds that are being done by that individual or by his or her regime, then it's just somehow people turn the page. That will not happen here as regards to Nicaragua. The regime, as we know, has closed Catholic radio stations and universities, obstructed access to places of worship, banned public way of the cross processions, and frozen the bank accounts of hundreds of Catholic institutions. Prisoners' requests for Bibles have been denied. Bishops and priests, as well as worshipers, have been harassed and detained, and the religious order of Sisters founded by Mother Teresa of Calcutta, the Missionaries of Charity, has been expelled. Bishop Alvarez is now, we think, the only known cleric to remain imprisoned by the regime, and it's time to let him go. Just last month, 12 priests were sent from imprisonment in Nicaragua to exile in the Vatican. Bishop Alvarez was not among them. Why? Bishop Alvarez has consistently encouraged Nicaraguans not to fall into the temptation of despair and instead be, quote, and this is his words, inundated with the hope of Christ who defeated death. Does this sound like a man who is guilty of treason or any crime? Of course not. I would like to share some additional words from the bishop spoken in a homily after he was placed under house arrest in August of 2022. He said, and I quote, painful experiences do not happen in vain. They don't fall into a void. These experiences are offered to the Lord, and God returns them in blessings for us. Bishop Alvarez encouraged the faithful, saying, and I quote him again, evil is defeated by the power of good. Good is always more powerful. God is eternally powerful. Evil is tremendously limited, even though it makes more noise. Close quote. He also encouraged people to be long-suffering and to die unto oneself, or it, quote, it is the hope of the grain of wheat that dies, that this is the only way it can produce much fruit. Bishop Alvarez admonishes all people of goodwill to have hearts full of forgiveness that mirror the mercy of God. I am in awe of his courage, faithfulness, and kindness, and I know so many others in Congress, House, Senate, Democrat, Republican, people in the White House, We are in awe of his goodness and his extraordinary strength. Instead of lashing out in bitterness at his captors, including President Ortega, Bishop Alvarez has called for forgiveness, renewal, and hope. Bishop Alvarez deserves to be respected and revered and free, not persecuted and incarcerated. We again appeal to President Daniel Ortega, let Bishop Alvarez go. Release him from prison. The video of Bishop Alvarez released this week by the government of Nicaragua raises serious questions and concerns about his well-being. He has lost weight. Is he ill? Is he being provided proper nutrition and basic medical care? We have no idea what is going on day to day. The conspicuous array of food and drink on the two tables in the government video is eerily reminiscent of a trip Congressman Frank Wolf and I made back in 1989 to Perm Camp 35, the infamous Soviet political prison in the Ural Mountains that had the great people like Nathan Sharansky as prisoners there. After meeting and videotaping 24 undernourished, and I mean gaunt, undernourished prisoners, the camp warden took us to the cafeteria. Every table had an abundance of food on it. Some had bites of bread that were half eaten as if there was a fire drill and everybody ran out the door. And the garbage cans were filled with overflowing with excess food. An absolute Potemkin village, and we let them know that nobody was fooled by such a charade. There are many questions that demand answers, and I suspect that the answers will only paint a more dire picture of the bishop's imprisonment in La Modelo, one of Latin America's most notorious prisons. I would note parenthetically, I've repeatedly requested to be able to visit Bishop Alvarez, Bianca Jagger, and others who have joined in. We've asked, let us go see him. And that is, we haven't even gotten a response. I asked the United States government, and that includes Congress and, of course, the executive branch, as I did in our subcommittee hearing in March, is the United States doing enough? Delay is denial when you're languishing and suffering in a prison. Sickness and all kinds of horrible things can happen to people in a prison, particularly a political prison. The United States needs to act quickly and use every single tool at our disposal. We have passed the Nicaragua Human Rights and Anti-Corruption Act of 2018, the Nicaraguan Investment Conditionality Act, and the Reinforcing Nicaragua's Adherence to Conditions for Electoral Reform Act. They're good. I'm glad we have. We're all part of that. It was a bipartisan effort. Despite the regime's egregious human rights abuses, however, Nicaragua remains a member of the Dominican Republic Central American Free Trade Agreement, or CAFTA-DR. Congress needs to seriously re-examine Nicaragua's membership in CAFTA-DR in light of the current situation and consider the full scope of economic tools at our disposal. So again, today, with these amazing witnesses that will, in a moment, be providing expert testimony, we appeal to President Ortega, let Bishop Alvarez go.